Seniors Heart Rate and FPG, PP Steps, Sleep Hours Part 1 No.1574, VPT number 111, March 16, 2026 Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation Catering, Cardiology. Preface. Today, I visited a new physician in Honolulu, Hawaii. Since it was my first visit, he spent more than an hour reviewing my health history. During our conversation, he emphasized that heart rate is an important biomarker that should be closely monitored, especially for senior citizens. Due to my recent stroke, I have spent a considerable amount of time understanding blood pressure, but I had not paid as much attention to my heart rate. Therefore, I am using this opportunity to study this subject and also write this particular article, focusing on heart rate. Over the past 17 years, I have continuously collected and analyzed my own pathophysiological data, including biomarkers such as weight, glucose, blood pressure, heart rate, and lipids, as well as key lifestyle details such as food portion, meal quality, carbohydrates and sugar amount in each meal, hydration, physical activity, walking steps, sleep quality and duration hours, and emotional stress levels. This effort was not driven by academic curiosity alone, but by a practical need to understand and control my chronic disease progression using a systems approach grounded in mathematics, physics, and engineering, rather than chemistry and statistics. During this recent visit, the physician commented that he had never seen a patient who had collected such a large and consistent dataset over such a long period of time. His observation confirmed an important reality: most clinical medicine relies on snapshots, while real pathophysiological systems evolve along trajectories. This paper is based on that trajectory perspective. It focuses on heart rate as an output signal and examines how four key input factors shape its behavior over time. The goal is not to discuss another biomarker in general terms, but rather to clarify, simplify, and derive useful insights from my own understanding. If I discover some meaningful findings, I will share them with other patients. Introduction. Modern medicine commonly evaluates heart rate using isolated measurements taken during clinic visits or short monitoring periods. These measurements may fall within a normal range, but they provide limited information about how the cardiovascular system behaves over time. A normal value at one moment does not guarantee stability, nor does it reveal whether the system is improving or deteriorating. In contrast, a trajectory-based approach follows the continuous evolution of pathophysiological signals. It captures direction, persistence, and accumulated effects, which are essential for understanding chronic conditions. In this study, I treat heart rate as an output strain of a complex biological system and analyze its relationship with four input stressors: fasting plasma glucose FPG, pulse pressure PP, daily walking steps, and sleep hours sleeper. Using 12.2 years of long-term longitudinal data since the 1st of January 2014. I apply the viscoplastic medicine theory VMT to quantify how much each input contributes to the overall behavior and energy of heart rate. Interaction with stressors. The central hypothesis is that accumulated energy influence provides a more accurate representation of pathophysiological control than traditional medicines. Statistical correlation or regression methods. In this paper, I use the term pathophysiology to represent the full spectrum of biological function, from normal regulation to disease states. VMT research methodology. System definition. The cardiovascular system is modeled as a dynamic system in which heart rate represents the output strain. The four input stressors represent different domains of physiological influence. FPG reflects metabolic demand and energy burden. PP reflects vascular stiffness and the mechanical resistance of the arterial system. Walking steps represent physical conditioning and functional capacity. Sleep hours represent autonomic recovery and regulatory balance. Each input variable is normalized using clinically meaningful reference values to ensure comparability across domains. These normalized inputs are the news to construct stress-strain relationships over time. In this study, for normalization factors I selected are 90 mg DL for FPG, 45 mmHg for 10, 0 steps for walking, 6 hours for sleeper. Unlike statistical approaches that evaluate correlation at individual points in time, VMT evaluates the cumulative interaction between inputs and output across the entire time trajectory. It incorporates magnitude, direction, persistence, and duration of deviation. Energy is defined as the accumulated area generated by the interaction between each normalized input and heart rate over time. The total system energy is then partitioned into percentage contributions from each input. This method captures the true influence of each factor as it acts continuously on the system, rather than intermittently. VMT analysis results. The VMT energy contributions off for input variables to heart rate are as follows. FPG contributes 31.48% of the total energy. Sleep hours contribute 26.34%. Pulse pressure contributes 23.83%. Walking steps contribute 18.35%. These results show that all four inputs are meaningful, but their influence is not equal. The system is dominated by metabolic FPG and autonomic fact at sleep hours, with vascular PP and activity roulette factors walking steps playing important but secondary roles. This for VMT energy contribution ratios confirm that FPG 31.48% metabolic load is the primary engine driving cardiovascular demand, while sleep hours 26.34% serves as the regulator. In engineering terms, if FPG is the fuel or load, sleep is the cooling and maintenance cycle that prevents system fatigue. Correlation comparison. For comparison, linear correlation coefficients between heart rate and each input were also calculated. FPG shows a moderate positive correlation of 0.38. Steps show a moderate negative correlation of negative 0.37. Sleep shows a weaker negative correlation of negative 0.18. Pulse pressure shows almost no correlation at 0.03. If one relies only on correlation, one would conclude that pulse pressure has little or no effect on heart rate. However, the VMT analysis shows that pulse pressure contributes nearly 1/4 of the total system energy. This discrepancy demonstrates a key limitation of statistical methods. Correlation measures alignment between variables at specific points, but it does not measure accumulated influence over time. TDA results illustration. In this study, I extended the traditional time series analysis into a topological geometry representation of system behavior. Instead of examining each variable independently, I constructed a trajectory in a three-dimensional strain-stress space using HR as the output, strain and FPG together with sleep hours as the two dominant stress inputs. Each annual data point is represented as a coordinate. FPG is sleep or HR, and these points are connected sequentially from 2014 to 2026. This produces a continuous trajectory that reflects the dynamic evolution of the metabolic and cardiovascular system. Several important structural patterns can be directly observed. First, the early stage 2014 to 2017 is located in a region of high FPG and moderate sleep, accompanied by elevated HR. This represents a high-energy, high-strain state. Second, the trajectory moves toward a lower region during 2018 to 2021, where FPG decreases and sleep gradually improves, reaches its lowest range in this period. This segment forms a clear downward movement in strain, indicating effective reduction of systemic stress. Third, in the later stage 2002 to 2006, the trajectory shifts toward higher sleep values while maintaining controlled FPG. HR rises slightly compared to the minimum period but remains well below the initial high-strain state. This reflects a stabilized system with improved recovery capacity. It should be noted that the second half of 2025 and the first 3 months of 2026 represent my post-stroke recovery period, characterized by a 30% increase in sleep hours and a 50% reduction in walking steps. The key observation is that the system follows a structured path rather than random fluctuations. The trajectory reveals direction, turning points, and stabilization regions that cannot be captured by statistical averages alone. From a systems engineering perspective, disease development and recovery are not discrete events but continuous movements within a two-dimensional stress-strain space. Therefore, effective prevention should focus on controlling the trajectory of the system rather than targeting isolated biomarker thresholds. This topological data analysis TDA-based visualization provides a clear and intuitive method to understand longitudinal health dynamics and to evaluate intervention effectiveness through observable trajectory shifts. The shift from the high-energy, high-strain state 2014 to the stabilized recovery state 2026 visually demonstrates that chronic disease is not a fixed point, but a path. Furthermore, the post-stroke period increased sleep and decreased steps should be viewed as a stabilized shift rather than a system failure, which is a vital distinction for senior health management. Discussion. Heart rate is often treated as a simple vital sign, but it is in fact the integrated output of multiple interacting subsystems. It reflects metabolic demand, vascular resistance, autonomic regulation, and physical conditioning simultaneously. And it is closely intertwined with lifestyle behaviors. FPG emerges as the dominant driver in this analysis, contributes 31% of VMT energy. This is consistent with the understanding that glucose metabolism directly affects energy demand and circulatory requirements. Elevated glucose levels require sustained cardiovascular effort, which is reflected in long-term heart rate behavior. Sleep hours is the second most important factor, and this finding deserves special attention, contributes 26% of VMT energy. Sleep regulates the autonomic nervous system, which directly controls heart rate. Adequate sleep promotes parasympathetic and stabilizes heart rate, while insufficient sleep increases sympathetic activity and raises heart rate. Because sleep acts continuously and consistently, its accumulated energy contribution becomes significant. Pulse pressure SBP-DBP contributes 24% of VMT energy, represents the mechanical condition of the vascular system, i.e., vascular elasticity. Although it does not show strong linear correlation with heart rate, it modifies the environment in which the heart operates. Stiffer arteries require the heart to work against greater resistance, which influences energy distribution even if it does not produce immediate linear changes in heart rate. Finally, daily exercise of walking steps represent physical conditioning, contributes 18% of VMT energy. Their lower energy contribution is expected because their effects are bidirectional. Increased activity raises heart rate in the short term but improves efficiency in the long term, leading to lower resting heart rate. These opposing effects partially offset each other. Energy versus correlation. In this study, the four correlation coefficients are between heart rate output, and the four inputs are low and insignificant. FPG 38%, PP 3%, steps, -37%, sleep hours, -18%. This study confirms that viscoplastic energy-based analysis and statistical correlation-based analysis measure fundamentally different properties. Correlation captures whether two variables move together, but energy captures how much influence a variable exerts over time. A variable can have low correlation but high energy contribution if its effect is persistent, nonlinear, or indirect. This is clearly demonstrated by pulse pressure in this dataset. For example, one key insight is that while PP and HR may not dance in sync correlation, PP creates the friction or mechanical environment energy that the heart must continuously overcome. This is part 1.